The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. One of the most powerful agents in women's basketball answering a number she didn't recognize. On the other end, a representative from a private equity firm based in Dubai. The question was simple: how many WNBA stars can we get commitments from in the next 72 hours? The offer wasn't simple at all. It was 7 figures, guaranteed, tax-free. And it wasn't for one player. It was a package deal for 3 of the league's biggest names. That call happened 6 days ago. The WNBA doesn't know about it yet, but they're about to. Because what's happening right now isn't a negotiation tactic. It's not a leverage play. It's not players trying to squeeze an extra $50,000 out of the collective bargaining agreement. This is an evacuation. 10 of the most electrifying, most marketable, most franchise-defining players in women's basketball are quietly, methodically, and very seriously exploring life after the WNBA. Not as a backup plan, as their primary option. And the name at the very top of that list? The one player whose departure would collapse the entire foundation of this league? She's already had the conversation. Multiple times. With multiple countries. We're going to get to her. But first, you need to understand how catastrophically the WNBA miscalculated this moment. The owners thought they held all the cards. They thought the players needed them more than they needed the players. They were wrong. Lethally wrong. Because while the WNBA has been stuck in boardrooms arguing over whether players deserve charter flights, the rest of the world has been building palaces for these women. Europe isn't just offering more money. They're offering respect, infrastructure, marketing machines that actually know how to sell women's basketball because they've been doing it for decades. China is offering something even more intoxicating. Stadiums packed with 15,000 fans who know your name. Endorsement deals that dwarf anything available in America. Treatment like you're not just an athlete but a cultural icon. The Middle East? They're writing blank checks. And here's the part that should make every WNBA executive lose sleep tonight. These leagues don't need to wait for the lockout to end. They can sign players right now, this week, tomorrow morning if the terms are right. The financial math isn't complicated anymore. A WNBA max salary is $241,984. That's before taxes, before agent fees, before you realize you're sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with a teammate because you can't afford rent in New York on that salary. Turkey's top clubs are offering $600,000, tax-free, with housing included, with a car included, with performance bonuses that can push the total package over $800,000. Russia before the war was paying $1 million. Those pipelines still exist. They've just moved to other countries with equally deep pockets and fewer headlines. China's CBA is structuring deals for marquee American players that approach $1.5 million when you include endorsements, appearances, and salary. Do the math. A player can make more money in 8 months overseas than she'd make in 3 years in the WNBA. And she doesn't have to deal with the disrespect, the commercial flights, the practice facilities that look like high school gyms, the referees who can't control games, the league office that seems more interested in managing optics than building infrastructure. This isn't about greed. This is about self-preservation. Because here's what the WNBA owners don't seem to understand. Loyalty is a luxury you earn, not a debt you're owed. And they haven't earned it. The collective bargaining agreement expired. The players walked away from the table. And for the first time in this league's 28-year history, the stars aren't coming back begging. They're not coming back at all. Unless something changes in the next few weeks, we are about to witness the greatest talent exodus in the history of American women's sports. Not because of a lockout. Not because of a labor dispute. Because the players finally realize they have options. Real options. Better options. And the list of names considering those options reads like an all-star roster that would sell out any arena in America. 10 players. 10 different motivations. 10 different breaking points. But they all arrived at the same conclusion on the same weekend. It wasn't planned. There was no secret meeting. No group text coordinating an exit strategy. What happened was simpler and more devastating. They all talked to their agents within 72 hours of each other. And every single one of those conversations ended the same way. What are my options outside the WNBA? Let's start with number 10 on the list. The player nobody saw coming. Because she's been the face of loyalty. The hometown hero who took less money to stay. The veteran who told rookies to trust the process. She's done trusting. Her name is being withheld for now, but league sources confirm she's a 3-time All-Star. A champion. Someone who has bled for this league since 2015. She watched the CBA negotiations collapse. She watched the owners refuse to budge on revenue sharing. She watched them treat charter flights like some impossible luxury instead of basic professional dignity. And then she got an offer from a EuroLeague club. Not just any club. One of the powerhouses. The kind of organization that treats women's basketball like it matters. The offer. $650,000 for 7 months. A penthouse apartment overlooking the Mediterranean. A performance bonus structure that could add another $150,000. And a clause that guarantees she'd be the featured star in all marketing campaigns. The kicker? They'd cover all her training expenses. Bring in her personal trainer, her nutritionist, her physiotherapist. Everything the WNBA told her was financially impossible. She hasn't signed yet, but her agent confirmed she's 85% of the way there. Her quote to close friends, "I gave them 9 years. I gave them everything. And they can't even give me a plain seat with legroom." She's gone. Number 9 is younger, hungrier, and absolutely electric. Second-year player who exploded onto the scene last season. Rookie of the Year runner-up. The kind of talent that makes casual fans buy League Pass subscriptions. She should be the future of this league. Instead, she might be its biggest defection. Because while she was making $74,305 in her rookie season, barely enough to cover rent in the city where she plays, she had an offer on the table from China worth triple that amount. She turned it down. She believed in the WNBA. She believed in building something special. Then she watched how the league marketed her. Or rather, didn't market her. She had the game-winning shot in the playoffs. A performance for the ages. 28 points, 7 assists, the dagger three-pointer with 4.3 seconds left. The WNBA posted a 15-second clip on social media. A teenage TikToker got more engagement posting a reaction video to her highlights than the league's official account did posting the actual highlights. That was the moment. Not the money. Not the travel conditions. Not even the lockout. It was the realization that the WNBA didn't know how to sell her. Didn't want to invest in selling her. Didn't understand that her value was exploding everywhere except in the league where she actually played. She's currently in conversations with 3 different leagues. Turkey, Italy, and Australia. The Australia offer is particularly interesting. It's not the highest financially, but it includes a pathway to citizenship, a media training program, and a guarantee that she'd be featured in a Netflix documentary they're producing about the league. Real investment, real marketing, real respect. Her decision timeline? Before the end of the month. League sources say it's 50-50. But those odds are getting worse for the WNBA every day the lockout continues. Now we get to number 8. This one's going to hurt. Because she's not just a star. She's a dynasty. A name that's been synonymous with winning for over a decade. 4-time champion. 2-time MVP. Olympic gold medalist. The kind of player who has a legitimate case for Mount Rushmore of women's basketball. She's 33 years old. She has maybe 2, possibly 3 elite seasons left. And she just watched the WNBA waste a month of her prime arguing over revenue splits while her body gets older and her championship window gets narrower. The offer she received came from an unexpected source. A private basketball league being. A private basketball league being launched in the Middle East with backing that makes European clubs look like small market operations. We're talking sovereign wealth fund money. The kind of investment that doesn't flinch at 8-figure budgets. They're not building a team. They're building a spectacle. An entire league designed around 8 marquee players who would become the faces of women's basketball in a region that's hungry to sports wash its image on the global stage. And they want her as their cornerstone. The offer is staggering. $2.3 million for 1 season. 18 games. 4 months of work. More money than she's made in her entire WNBA career combined. But here's what makes this different from every other overseas offer she's received over the years. They're offering equity. 20% ownership stake in her franchise. A seat at the table when decisions get made. A voice that actually gets heard instead of dismissed. Everything the WNBA told her was impossible, this new league is handing her on day one. She hasn't said yes, but she also hasn't said no. And the silence from her camp is deafening. Terrifying. Because if she walks, she doesn't walk alone. She brings credibility. She brings legitimacy. She brings the kind of star power that would make other elite players look at that Middle East league and think, maybe this is real. Her agent declined to comment for this story. But sources close to the negotiations say she's given herself a deadline of April 15th. 3 weeks from now. If the WNBA lockout isn't resolved by then, if there's no real movement on the issues that actually matter, she's taking the meeting in Dubai. And once she takes that meeting, the dominoes start falling. Because number 7 is already falling. This player is younger than number 8. Hungrier. And she doesn't have the same emotional ties to the league. She's a 27-year-old all-star. 2-time scoring champion. The kind of player who fills seats and sells jerseys and makes highlight reels that go viral. She's also completely fed up. Last season, she averaged 24.7 points per game. Led her team to the playoffs. Carried a franchise on her back while dealing with injuries that would have sidelined players with less mental toughness. Her reward? A max contract worth $241,984. Sounds decent until you realize her male counterparts in the NBA, players with worse stats and less impact, are making $30 million. She's not naive. She understands the revenue differences. She understands that NBA players work in a league that's been building for decades. What she doesn't understand is why the WNBA expects her to be grateful for scraps when leagues in other countries are offering her feasts. The offer she received from Turkey is clean, simple, ruthlessly effective. $700,000 base salary. Tax-free. 6-month contract that ends before WNBA training camps would typically start, meaning if the lockout miraculously ends, she could theoretically play both. But here's the detail that caught her attention. The Turkish club is owned by a billionaire who made his fortune in telecommunications. He's already signed 2 other WNBA players in the past 3 years. Both of them came back raving about the experience. Professional treatment. World-class facilities. Crowds that actually show up. Media coverage that treats women's basketball like it matters. One of those players told her, "It's what the WNBA pretends to be." That quote is haunting league executives right now. Because number 7 isn't just considering the Turkish offer. She's recommending it to other players. She's become an unofficial recruiter for a league that's actively poaching WNBA talent. Her timeline is aggressive. She wants a decision made by April 10th, 5 days before number 8's deadline. If she commits to Turkey, the pressure on everyone else intensifies. The exodus becomes real, undeniable. And the player at number 6 is watching all of this very, very carefully. Because she's the one player who could actually stop this. Not through speeches. Not through loyalty. Not through some desperate plea to save the league. She could stop it by staying. By being the example. By showing that betting on the WNBA is still the right move. She's 25 years old. A rising superstar. The kind of player who transcends basketball and becomes a cultural movement. She has 3.2 million Instagram followers. Endorsement deals with Nike, Gatorade, and Apple. A signature shoe that sold out in 47 minutes. She's what the WNBA has been desperately trying to build for 28 years. And she's getting absolutely buried by the league's incompetence. Last season, her team made the finals. She averaged 23 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds in the championship series. Put up numbers that would make NBA stars nod in respect. The ratings were decent. Not great, but climbing. The kind of trajectory that suggests something real is building. Then the league's marketing department did what they always do. Nothing. No follow-up campaign. No documentary series. No investment in turning that finals performance into a cultural moment that could have carried into the next season. They had lightning in a bottle and they left the cap off. She watched NBA players with half her talent get 10-minute features on ESPN. Watched male athletes who'd never won anything get podcasts, streaming shows, and primetime specials. Meanwhile, the WNBA asked her to do a 3-minute interview for their YouTube channel that got 14,000 views. The disrespect isn't just financial anymore. It's existential. And the offers she's been receiving reflect what the rest of the world sees that the WNBA refuses to acknowledge. She's not just a basketball player, she's a global brand being suffocated by a league that doesn't know how to think globally. 3 separate entities have approached her in the last 10 days. The first is a Chinese basketball club backed by a tech conglomerate that wants to make women's basketball their signature sports investment. The money is obscene. $1.8 million for 8 months. But that's just the salary. They're offering her creative control over marketing campaigns. A documentary crew that would follow her entire season. A merchandise line that she'd own 30% of. And a guarantee that every game would be broadcast to 400 million households across Asia. The WNBA can barely get games on ESPN2. The second offer came from a European Super League that's trying to consolidate the top clubs from 6 different countries into one elite competition. Think Champions League, but built specifically around 10 to 12 marquee players who would rotate between cities. They're offering $1.2 million plus housing plus performance bonuses plus, and this is what caught her attention, a clause that would give her input on league governance. She'd have a vote on rule changes, on marketing strategy, on how the league develops its brand. Everything the WNBA has denied players for 3 decades, this league is offering on day one. But the third offer is the one that's really making her think. It came from inside the United States. A group of private investors, including 2 former NBA players and a tech billionaire who's been watching the WNBA lockout with increasing frustration, are floating the idea of a new domestic league. Not overseas, not in Europe or Asia or the Middle East, right here. American cities, American infrastructure, built from scratch without the baggage and broken systems that have kept the WNBA stagnant. The proposal is still early, still conceptual, but they've already secured commitments from 4 investors willing to put up $20 million each. They've had preliminary conversations with arena operators in 6 major markets, and they're targeting 12 players who could serve as franchise cornerstones. She's number 1 on that list. The pitch is simple. We're building what the WNBA should have been. Higher salaries, revenue sharing from day one, marketing budgets that match the talent level, a media rights strategy designed for streaming and social media, not cable television contracts negotiated by executives who still think Twitter is a fad. And here's the detail that's making WNBA executives physically ill. This new league wouldn't compete with the WNBA schedule. It would replace it. Same cities, same arenas, better everything else. She hasn't committed to anything yet, but she's taking meetings, listening, asking questions. And every day the lockout continues, those alternative options look less like backup plans and more like primary destinations. Her agent released a carefully worded statement last week. All options are being evaluated with an eye toward maximizing both competitive opportunity and professional respect. Translation, the WNBA ISN. Guaranteed anymore. And if number 6 walks, the league doesn't just lose a star. It loses its future. But she's not the one that keeps Commissioner's office up at night anymore. That distinction belongs to number 5. Because number 5 isn't exploring options. She's already made her decision. The paperwork is being finalized. The announcement is being coordinated. And when it drops, it's going to send shockwaves through women's basketball that will be felt for a generation. She's 29 years old, 3-time All-Star, former MVP runner-up, one of the most complete players in the game, can score, defend, facilitate, and do it all while making everyone around her better. She's also the first domino that's actually going to fall. League sources confirm she's signing with a EuroLeague club in Spain within the next 72 hours. The contract is done. The terms are agreed upon. The only thing left is timing the announcement for maximum impact, or minimum blowback depending on which side of this you're on. $850,000 for 7 months. Penthouse in Barcelona. Full training staff. And a clause that's absolutely unprecedented. The team is giving her complete approval over all media obligations. She decides which interviews she does, which sponsors she works with, how she's marketed and to whom. The control the WNBA never gave her, a team in Spain is handing over without hesitation. But here's what makes her departure genuinely catastrophic for the league. She's not going alone. 2 other players from her former WNBA team are in advanced negotiations with clubs in the same Spanish league. Not the same team, different cities, different organizations, but close enough that they could still see each other, practice together in the off weeks, maintain the chemistry that made them so dangerous. They're building a life, a real life, not the transactional, temporary existence the WNBA forced them into. One of those teammates is number 4 on this list. She's younger, 26, still ascending. The kind of two-way player who should be building a Hall of Fame resume in the WNBA for the next decade. Instead, she'll be doing it in Italy. The offer came from a club in Milan. Historic organization, passionate fan base, the kind of environment where women's basketball isn't an afterthought or a charitable write-off, it's genuine sporting culture. They're paying her $680,000. Not as much as some of these other offers, but the situation matters more than the salary at this point. She'll be living in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, playing in front of crowds that average 7,000 fans, more than most WNBA teams draw. Being treated like the elite athlete she is instead of some novelty act the league trots out when they need good PR. Her agent put it bluntly in a private conversation that leaked last week. She's not leaving the WNBA. She's graduating from it. That quote is going to haunt this league for years, because it reframes the entire narrative. This isn't about players abandoning ship. It's about elite athletes outgrowing a league that refused to grow with them. And the player at number 3 is the one who's going to make that argument on the biggest possible stage. Because she's not just leaving quietly. She's not slipping away to Europe with a carefully worded press release about exploring opportunities. She's about to declare war. Number 3 is a 6-year veteran, former Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time All-WNBA first team, the kind of player who changes games just by being on the floor. She's also the most outspoken player in the league about its failures. She's been fined 3 times for criticizing officiating, twice for calling out the league's marketing incompetence on social media, once for telling a reporter that the WNBA treats players like expensive inconveniences instead of valuable assets. The league told her to be quiet, to stop making things difficult, to remember how lucky she was to even have a professional league to play in. She told them where they could shove their gratitude. And now she's got an offer from China that's going to let her burn every bridge on her way out. $1.4 million for 8 months. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the Chinese club is. The Chinese club is giving her a platform the WNBA never would. They're building an entire media campaign around her arrival. A documentary series. A signature sneaker designed by one of Asia's hottest streetwear brands. And here's the kicker. A weekly show where she gets to talk about basketball, culture, and yes, everything wrong with the WNBA. Uncensored. Unfiltered. Unapologetic. The league that silenced her is about to watch her become the loudest voice in women's basketball from 7,000 miles away. Her premiere episode is already scheduled. The topic? Why American basketball failed its women. She's not just leaving. She's taking a flamethrower to everything on her way out. And the WNBA can't do a damn thing about it because she won't be under their jurisdiction anymore. The announcement is coming next week. Her agent confirmed she's already filmed the first 3 episodes, already done the photo shoots, already signed the contracts. This isn't a negotiation tactic. This isn't leverage. This is a middle finger wrapped in $1 million contract. But as devastating as her departure will be, as much as it'll hurt the league's credibility and expose every crack in their foundation, she's not the one that breaks everything. That honor belongs to number 2. Because number 2 is different. Number 2 is beloved. Number 2 is the player even casual fans know by name. She's been the face of professionalism, the model citizen, the player who showed up to every community event, every youth clinic, every PR obligation the league asked her to fulfill. She smiled through the disrespect. She stayed positive through the poverty wages. She believed, genuinely believed, that loyalty would be rewarded. It wasn't. Last season, she won her 2nd championship. Finals MVP. Put up 26 points in the clinching game. Career-defining performance. The WNBA gave her a certificate and a trophy that looked like it came from a high school awards banquet. The bonus for winning the championship? $11,000. Before taxes. She made less money winning a professional basketball championship than some NBA players make per quarter sitting on the bench. That was the crack in her faith. Then came the lockout. And she watched the owners, billionaires, every single one of them, refuse to budge on revenue-sharing percentages that wouldn't even show up as a rounding error in their quarterly earnings reports. She watched them cry poverty while owning NFL franchises and tech companies and real estate empires that make the WNBA look like a lemonade stand. And something inside her just broke. The offers started coming immediately. They always do for a player of her caliber. But she ignored them for years. Stayed loyal. Stayed committed. Not anymore. She's been in quiet negotiations with a EuroLeague club in France for the last 3 weeks. Not just any club. The premier organization in women's European basketball. The team that's won 4 of the last 6 EuroLeague championships. The team that treats women's basketball like it's not some charity case but actual professional sports. The offer is comprehensive. $920,000 base salary. Performance bonuses that could push it over $1.1 million. An apartment in the heart of Paris that costs more per month than she made in an entire WNBA season. But money isn't what sold her. What sold her was the visit. She flew to France 2 weeks ago. Told everyone it was a vacation. It wasn't. The club flew her first class. Already a better experience than any WNBA team flight. Picked her up in a Mercedes. Took her to facilities that made her home arena look like a YMCA. Then they introduced her to the fans. 3,000 people showed up to a practice facility just to meet her. To tell her they'd been watching her highlights for years. To say they'd buy season tickets if she signed. 3,000 people. For a player most Americans couldn't pick out of a lineup. She cried in the car ride back to the hotel, called her agent and said 4 words, "Get me out of here." Not out of France. Out of the WNBA. The paperwork is 90% complete. Her agent is finalizing the last few clauses. And barring some miracle, some complete reversal from the WNBA owners in the next 10 days, she's gone. She's gone. And when she leaves, she's not making some bitter announcement. No scathing press conference. No burned bridges. That's what makes it so much worse. She's going to thank the WNBA. She's going to say all the right things about growth and opportunity and exploring new challenges. She's going to smile and be gracious and professional right up until the moment she boards that plane to Paris. And the league is going to have to watch the perfect player, the model citizen, the one they held up as everything right about women's basketball, choose literally anywhere else. You can't spin that. You can't blame that on a greedy player or a bad attitude or unrealistic expectations. When the good ones leave, when the loyal ones walk away, you can't hide behind excuses anymore. You just have to sit with the failure. But here's the thing that should absolutely terrify every WNBA executive, every team owner, every person who's been treating this lockout like some minor inconvenience that'll blow over. We're not at number 1 yet. Because as devastating as number 2's departure will be, as much credibility as the league will lose, as many fans will question why they should keep supporting an organization that can't even keep its best players. Number 2 isn't the nuclear option. Number 1 is. And number 1 is Caitlin Clark. The phone call her agent received wasn't from Dubai or Turkey or China or some European Super League. It came from inside the United States. Specifically, from a conference room in Manhattan where 8 investors have spent the last 4 months building something that could completely replace the WNBA. Not supplement it. Not compete with it. Replace it. They're calling it the Professional Women's Basketball Association. The PWBA. Clean slate. New infrastructure. Built from the ground up by people who actually understand modern sports business and aren't trying to run a 2025 league with 1997 strategies. The financial backing is legitimate. Terrifyingly legitimate. Lead investor is a billionaire tech founder who sold his company for $8.3 billion and has been looking for his next legacy project. He's already committed $200 million over 5 years. 2 former NBA players are in for $50 million each. Both of them have been vocal about how embarrassingly the WNBA treats its players. A private equity firm specializing in sports franchises has committed $150 million. And 3 Fortune 500 companies have signed on as founding sponsors with deals that total more than the WNBA's entire current sponsorship portfolio. They're not playing around. They've secured arena deals in 8 cities. Major markets. Not the WNBA's leftover scraps, but legitimate venues with prime dates. They've hired a media rights consultant who negotiated the last 2 massive NBA television deals. He's already had preliminary conversations with Amazon, Apple, and Netflix about streaming rights. They've assembled a rules committee that includes former players, coaches, and sports scientists tasked with creating a product that's more entertaining, more progressive, and more player-friendly than anything the WNBA has ever imagined. And they've identified 12 players who could serve as franchise cornerstones. Caitlin Clark is number 1 on that list. Not just because she's talented. Not just because she's marketable. Because she's the proof of concept. She proved that women's basketball can draw ratings that rival men's games. She proved that fans will pack arenas and buy merchandise and obsess over highlights if you give them a player worth obsessing over. She proved that the problem was never the product, it was the packaging. And the PWBA is offering her something the WNBA never could. Equity. Not just a higher salary, though that's part of it. They're offering her 5% ownership of the entire league. 5% of a venture backed by $500 million. If this league succeeds, if it becomes what the investors believe it can become, her stake alone could be worth $50 million within 10 years. The WNBA offered her $76,535 in her rookie season. Do that math. Sit with that disparity. But ownership is just the beginning of the pitch. They're offering her complete control over her brand within the league structure. She decides which sponsors she works with, which media she engages with, how she's marketed and to whom. They're offering her input on league governance. A seat at the table. A seat at the table when real decisions get made. Not the fake player advisory committee nonsense the WNBA trots out for PR purposes. Actual power. Actual influence. A voice that carries weight when the people with money are deciding the future. They're offering her the thing she's wanted since the moment she stepped onto a professional court. To be treated like she matters. The first meeting happened 3 weeks ago. Private. Discreet. in a hotel suite in Indianapolis during what was supposed to be a routine off-season appearance. She brought her agent, her father, and her lawyer, which tells you how seriously she's taking this. The presentation lasted 2 hours. They showed her the financial projections, the arena deals, the broadcast partnerships in development, the marketing strategy that would make her not just the face of the league but the face of a movement. They showed her what 12 elite players with actual support could build. And then they showed her the money. $850,000 base salary for year one. More than triple what the WNBA would pay her even if she became the league MVP. But that's just the salary line. Performance bonuses that could add $200,000. Licensing deals for her name and image that she'd own 70% of. The WNBA currently owns 100%. A signature sneaker line developed in partnership with a major athletic brand that's already been in conversations. And that 5% equity stake in a league that, if the projections hold, could be valued at over $1 billion within 7 years. Total potential package in year one, $1.2 million. Total potential value over 10 years if everything breaks right, north of $40 million. She didn't say yes in that hotel room, but she didn't say no either. What she said was, "Give me 4 weeks." That was 21 days ago. 3 weeks left on her timeline. 3 weeks for the WNBA to figure out it's about to lose the one player it absolutely cannot afford to lose. Because here's what league executives still don't seem to understand. Caitlin Clark isn't just another star. She's not even just a generational talent. She's the entire justification for the WNBA's existence in the modern era. Before she arrived, the league was stagnant. Viewership was declining. Attendance was dropping. The cultural conversation had moved on to other sports, other athletes, other stories. Then she showed up and broke everything. Her college games drew bigger ratings than NBA playoff matchups. Her jersey sales crashed websites. Her highlights went viral not on women's basketball accounts but on mainstream sports pages where women's hoops had been invisible for decades. She made women's basketball cool again. Made it relevant. Made it undeniable. And the WNBA responded by paying her $76,535 and making her fly commercial. The disconnect is almost beautiful in its stupidity. They had the lottery ticket. They had the golden goose. They had the one asset that could have transformed their entire economic model. And they treated her like she was lucky to be there. Now she's sitting in meetings with people who understand what she's worth, who see her not as a problem to be managed but as an investment that could return billions. The PWBA's entire strategy is built around one central premise. If you give elite players elite treatment, elite results follow. Pay them like professionals, they'll perform like professionals. Market them like stars, they'll become stars. Treat them with respect, they'll give you their loyalty. It's not complicated. The WNBA just never bothered to try it. And now they're about to pay the price. Because if Caitlin leaves, when Caitlin leaves, she doesn't leave alone. The PWBA has already had conversations with 6 other players on this list. 3 of them have expressed serious interest. 2 have taken meetings. Number 6, the 25-year-old cultural phenomenon with the massive social media following. She's been on 2 separate video calls with PWBA investors in the last 10 days. Number 4, the two-way star who's supposedly signing in Italy. Her agent has asked the Italian club to include an opt-out clause if a domestic alternative emerges. They're all watching Caitlin, waiting to see what she does. Because where she goes, credibility follows. If she signs with the PWBA, it stops being some speculative startup and becomes a legitimate threat. The WNBA has 13 days to save itself. 13 days before Caitlin Clark's self-imposed deadline expires. 13 days before the most important decision in women's basketball history gets made in a conference room where WNBA executives won't even have a chair. And they're spending those 13 days doing exactly what they've always done. Nothing. Well, not nothing. They're issuing statements. Carefully worded press releases about ongoing negotiations and productive dialogue and commitment to our players. The same corporate nonsense they've been recycling for 28 years. Meanwhile, the PWBA has spent the last 72 hours making moves that should have every WNBA owner in full panic mode. They signed a letter of intent with Amazon Prime Video. Not for streaming rights. That negotiation is still ongoing, but for a docuseries that would follow the league's inaugural season. 8 episodes. Full behind-the-scenes access. The kind of content investment that Netflix made with Formula One and turned into a cultural phenomenon. Amazon didn't just agree to produce it. They agreed to fund it. $12 million production budget. plus a marketing campaign that would promote the series across every Amazon platform. The WNBA has never had a content budget that even approaches that number. But here's the detail that should make every league executive physically sick. The docuseries is contingent on Caitlin Clark being in the league, not just playing, being the centerpiece, the narrative anchor, the star that makes casual viewers care about women's basketball even if they've never watched a game. Amazon's not interested in documenting some scrappy startup league. They're interested in documenting the Caitlin Clark revolution. And if she signs with the PWBA, that revolution starts without the WNBA anywhere in frame. The deadline is April 12th, 11 days from now. That's when Caitlin told the PWBA she'd have an answer. But the WNBA's acting like they have all the time in the world. Like she's bluffing. Like loyalty and history and tradition will somehow override economics and respect and basic human dignity. They're wrong. Sources close to Caitlin's camp confirm she's already started making arrangements that suggest the decision is made. She's had conversations with 3 potential teammates about joining the PWBA. She's met with Nike about restructuring her endorsement deal to accommodate a non-WNBA league. She's consulted with tax attorneys about the implications of the equity stake. You don't do that if you're staying. You do that when you're already gone and just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Her agent has been unreachable for the last 4 days. Not ignoring calls, completely offline. The kind of radio silence that happens when someone's locked in a room finalizing contract language. The WNBA's last, desperate hope is that she'll feel some obligation to save the league. That she'll remember she's not just a player but a symbol. That women's basketball in America needs her. That walking away would be abandoning everyone who fought to build this league before she arrived. It's a guilt trip wrapped in legacy language. And it's not going to work. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't owe the WNBA her future just because other people sacrificed their past. She doesn't owe them loyalty they never earned. She doesn't owe them patience they never showed her. The veterans who built this league, the legends who played for poverty wages and fought for every scrap of respect, they did that so players like Caitlin wouldn't have to. They did it so the next generation could demand more, could expect better, could walk away from disrespect instead of swallowing it with a smile. Caitlin leaving isn't betraying their legacy. It's honoring it. And the other 9 players on this list are watching that calculation happen in real time. Number 7, the scoring champion who's been talking to Turkish clubs? Her agent just asked the PWBA for a meeting. Number 5, who's supposedly signing in Spain within 72 hours. Her announcement got delayed. No explanation. Just a cryptic statement about evaluating all options. They're waiting. Not because they need Caitlin's permission. Not because they can't make their own decisions. Because they're smart enough to recognize a tipping point when they see one. If Caitlin commits to the PWBA, it's not 10 players leaving the WNBA anymore. It's 50. Because every player who's been swallowing frustration and biting their tongue and accepting disrespect while telling themselves, at least we have a league, will suddenly see there's another option. A better option. An option that treats them like the elite athletes they are instead of charity cases who should be grateful for the opportunity to be exploited. The PWBA investors understand this. They've modeled it out. They know exactly what happens when Caitlin signs. The announcement won't just be a press release. It'll be a declaration of independence for women's basketball. They've already got the marketing campaign ready. Already shot the commercial. Already written the manifesto that'll run as a full-page ad in the New York Times. The tagline, "We're not leaving women's basketball. We're saving it." 30 seconds. Caitlin looking directly into camera. No hype. No theatrics. Just truth. I spent my entire life being told what women's basketball could be. I'm done listening. It's time to show them what it should be. Cut to black. PWBA logo. Launch date. It's devastating. Perfect. Undeniable. And it drops the morning after she signs. The WNBA will have 0 time to respond. 0 time to craft a counter-narrative. 0 time to do anything except watch their entire foundation crumble in real time. 8 days left. The owners are finally starting to panic. Emergency meetings are being scheduled. Calls are being made to players who might have influence with Caitlin. Desperate offers are being floated about restructuring the entire economic model if she'll just stay. Too little. Too late. You don't get to ignore someone for a year and then promise change when they're walking out the door. You don't get to treat players like inconveniences and then suddenly pretend you value them when your business model is collapsing. The WNBA had decades to get this right. They had every warning sign, every piece of data, Every player testimonial about how overseas leagues were treating them better. They chose comfort over evolution. They chose protecting ownership profits over investing in player value. They chose to believe women's basketball couldn't be bigger because admitting it could be bigger would have meant admitting they'd failed to make it bigger. And now the bill is due. Caitlin Clark's decision will be announced on April 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Not a press conference. Not a social media post. A produced video that'll run simultaneously across every platform: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and yes, Amazon Prime. 60 seconds that will either save the WNBA or end it. The PWBA has already purchased ad time during NBA playoff games that same evening. They're not hiding. They're not apologizing. They're declaring war. And they're doing it with the one weapon the WNBA can't defend against: the truth. That women's basketball deserves better than what the WNBA has been willing to provide. That elite athletes shouldn't have to choose between their sport and their financial security. That loyalty is a two-way street and the WNBA stopped holding up its end decades ago. 6 days now. The players who've already signed overseas are watching, wondering if they made the right call, wondering if they should have waited to see what Caitlin does. Number 2 in Paris. Number 5 in Spain. Number 7 in Turkey. They're all one phone call away from tearing up contracts if the PWBA becomes real. Because playing overseas was always the backup plan. The escape hatch. The thing you did when there wasn't a better option. But if there's a better option in America? If there's a league that respects you and pays you and treats you like you matter? Everyone comes home. The WNBA had one job: keep the best players in the league. They failed. And they failed so spectacularly, so completely, so obviously that someone else is about to do their job better using the exact same talent pool. That's not bad luck. That's not circumstance. That's incompetence. And you don't fix 28 years of incompetence in 6 days. The PWBA's first season is scheduled to launch in October 2nd.